You've decided you're ready to become a parent, and suddenly you're overwhelmed with people who feel they have the right to inform you on the correct way to conceive, give birth, what fears you should have, and the proper way to parent. How do you filter through the opinions? How do you know what's trustworthy information and what's a myth or just plain outdated? Welcome to the Birth Ease podcast. Join your host Michelle Smith and her guests as they cut through the noise and fear by sharing valuable tips, tools, and proven methods that help you connect with your own inner wisdom as you navigate the sacred journey that is pregnancy, birth, and parenthood in a more relaxed and confident manner. This podcast does not constitute, nor is it intended, as medical advice.
Hello, Birth Ease families. Welcome to this heartfelt space. I'm your host, Michelle Smith, and I'm so grateful you are here. This COVID-19 pandemic has brought so much uncertainty, and it raises so many fears for families as they navigate their pregnancy and their birth. The ever-changing guidelines regarding prenatal care, the ability to have more than one support person with them during birth, whether or not they'll be required to wear a mask, and maybe facing isolation in their postpartum period with their new baby. Therefore, I thought it might be helpful to have some of my family share their experiences of pregnancy and birth during this COVID-19 pandemic. In this episode, I am so grateful to have with me my second-time client, Jenn. Welcome, Jenn, to the Birth Ease podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad. I appreciate you doing this because so many mamas are now wondering, what am I going to experience giving birth during this COVID-19 pandemic? And so I really appreciate you taking this time just to share your experience, because overall it was positive, but there's just those stressful moments that have happened and the uncertainty that you face. So could you share a little bit about how your pregnancy differed this time with your second baby versus your first?
Sure. So this pregnancy was different because I wasn't able to have my husband, Ryan, accompany me to the office visits. When we were pregnant with our first, he was at every single appointment and I was able to have his support. And with this, our office had like a strict no visitor policy. So I would walk in and get my temperature checked and fill out this paperwork about if I had any symptoms or if I've been in contact with anybody with symptoms. And then I was able to visit with my doctor and do that by myself.
Now, could you bring your older son? Would they let you bring your children if you needed to, or were they restricting children from coming in as well?
They were restricting children, which I thought was very interesting because I am grateful to have family, my mom to help and assist, or my husband working from home to help and assist. But I don't know about the mamas that don't have that support, what they would do with their kid. But it's a strict no children policy, even at your 6-week postpartum appointment. Like last pregnancy with Mason, I brought him to the 6-week postpartum appointment, but this time Connor was not allowed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's difficult, especially when you're nursing and trying to get out the door. And
Very.
yeah. How did you end up handling that?
I was able to have both boys with my mom for my 6-week postpartum visit.
Okay.
Which is a lot better. I mean, Mason, he's a toddler. He just turned 2, and Connor at the time was 6 weeks. So juggling the two and having your down there checked would not be ideal with the two kiddos.
Right. Yeah, I would think I would need to find someone for the 2-year-old. I'm just thinking, I live so far away from my midwife. I was thinking, oh my gosh, if I had to leave the baby, I'd almost need to ride with somebody and they could sit in the car with the baby.
Right. That's what I was just going to say. I've seen the partners in the car in the parking garage waiting for their partners.
Hmm.
So that's nice too.
Yeah. So the visits were just you.
The visits were just me. And of course, I had to wear a mask as the staff was wearing a mask as well. And the 20-week ultrasound, which is pretty monumental for most parents as you're
Yeah.
doing the anatomy scan.
Yeah.
Typically, no cameras are allowed in the room. You can't even take a picture of the screen. But this time around, they're allowing video and FaceTiming with your partner, or family member, or friend. So I thought that was nice that they were being flexible and understanding that mamas need that support
Yeah. Yeah.
and enthusiasm.
Right. Well, it's like a rite of passage to see that ultrasound with your partner, and to have to do that alone. I'm sure a lot of mamas are grieving that. It feels like there is a loss of a lot of monumental moments in pregnancy with COVID.
Definitely. And that's where I'm grateful that this was not my first rodeo, that I have my 2-year-old. So I knew what to expect almost going into office visits, but I can't imagine how it's been for these first time mamas.
Hmm. Yeah, because you had to do your baby shower different as well, right?
Correct. So with my baby shower, I'm such a planner and I had all of the details figured out, the venue secured, the invitations and party favors gathered. And unfortunately, I had to cancel it. At first, I was thinking it was an April baby shower. I was thinking maybe I could just postpone it to May.
Hmm.
Wishful thinking.
Right, right. We all thought this was going to be done.
Right. Wishful
It's
thinking.
all going to be done by August.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
And here we are. But instead, we had to cancel the in person gathering and
Mm,
be creative and do a drive by baby shower, one of those parades that you see all over Instagram and Facebook that people are doing. And honestly, it was so much fun.
that's good.
It was so great. We had so many people show us love, driving like 30 minutes just to see us for maybe 2 minutes. For me, it was just special to be able to celebrate this pregnancy. I know that it was my second, and I also know that we were having another boy, but he still needed to be celebrated.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say every baby deserves to be celebrated.
Definitely,
I don't care if it's my grandma gave birth 14 times. I think every one of my aunts and uncles, my mom deserved to be celebrated.
definitely. And so it was special. It was different because we were outside of our home. We did a huge tent because we were in Orlando with the sun beating down on us.
Mm,
And then it was fiesta themed. So we had fiesta music playing. We had cute fiesta decor just to make it happy and celebratory. And our guests did just that also. We had, people with balloons out of their sunroof and posters and people wearing sombreros and blasting fiesta
it's
music.
so
It was
fun.
so much fun. They rolled down their window, they gave us a gift, which was so sweet. And then we passed over party favors. We had cupcakes and cookies. And we just made it the best that we could given the
Hmm.
circumstances that we were in.
Yeah. Well, it sounds a lot more memorable than the baby showers that, when I had a baby shower 34 years ago, they were they were very different.
Yeah.
A very traditional, stuffy baby shower where you play the games and
Yes, yes. I had that for my first. And I think too, like with my first baby shower, it was the women
yeah,
only.
yeah,
So it was my girlfriends and my mom. And this time it was nice because, Ryan was a part of it. And then my
yeah.
friends with spouses, they brought their husbands and their car full of kids. And so it was just like everyone was celebrating, and that was really nice.
I like the idea of the co-ed baby showers.
I do too.
Yeah, I think they're fun. I don't know how well the drive-by showers are working now in August in Orlando. I guess you'd have to do it at night. Like, it wasn't terribly hot last night, but you have no way to predict. And it was supposed to be a hurricane, so
Right.
I don't.
It's been hot. It has definitely been hot. I know that my girlfriend, who's due next month, September, she's doing a virtual baby shower.
Mm,
She's having like a Zoom call.
okay.
And so
Yeah.
that's another option for mamas if you're comfortable with that, or if your family and friends are spread out.
Yeah, and I know that a few mamas that I work with, they've done their showers over Facebook or Zoom. And one of my mamas said it was nice, but she felt really awkward because she's opening her presents on camera and stuff, but
Right,
her family made it fun. And she's just more shy by nature anyway.
right.
But it's so sad because I do feel like mamas, especially first time moms, a lot of my clients, they're isolating to protect themselves and their baby, and they're feeling apprehensive about all of this, understandably. But there is this missing out on rituals and celebrations that we sometimes even consciously don't realize that we're expecting in our pregnancy. And so finding these creative ways, it'll make it more memorable for sure. You're going to say, gave birth during a pandemic.
Totally.
So, how can we find the positive in this really more difficult situation? So, as your pregnancy advanced, can you share a little bit about your preparation to get ready for labor?
Sure. So with COVID, we were homebound. And with that, we were able to nest a little bit more than we probably would have. We got to organize closets and cupboards that we would not have touched because we would typically be out and about. And so that was nice. But preparing was different because Michelle, you're my doula, and typically we would do in person
Yeah,
sessions, and instead we were doing Zoom calls,
right.
which totally served its purpose and worked.
It was nice because we could meet later at night.
It was nice.
That was nice. I
Right.
mean, I missed getting to see you and hug you, especially because I was there for Mason's birth. So that part for me as a doula was really hard, knowing that, I wasn't going to be able to be there at the hospital.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Zoom calls, they are being a little more, for lack of better words, intimate than I thought they might be able to be.
I think so too. I think that it totally served its purpose. And like you said, doing it at night helped. So Mason was sleeping and we didn't have to find Mason coverage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we were like in the comfort of our own home, which was so nice.
Mm-hmm.
But it was during those Zoom calls that we were able to plan out how to proceed with my labor and decisions that I needed to make.
We met a bit more than we would have in person too, because things, they kept changing, and let's check in and make sure that our plan is still our plan. And are they going to let doulas out? Because there was that big thing of my other mama who was due around the same time, that they were telling her in registration that I was going to get to be there. And then you called
Correct.
and I wasn't. And so there was this big emotional back and forth with that.
Right. It was just so wishy-washy if doulas were a visitor or if they were, quote, an essential worker,
Right.
which you guys are,
Right.
but they were classifying you as a visitor. And
Mm-hmm.
our particular hospital was only allowing one visitor, the same person, throughout your entire hospital stay.
Right.
So that was tough. But I think preparing for labor with a virtual,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of better words, doula,
Mm-hmm.
it still was amazing to have your support. And then stuff that was important to me, like having essential oils and your special blend that you make, you were able to mail that to me and I was able to bring it to the hospital.
Yeah.
And so that was special to be able to make the best out of these weird, unusual, unique circumstances.
Yeah. And we did a lot of texting and chatting before and had plans to virtual Zoom if we needed to, but your babies decide when they're ready to come out, they're ready to come out. So there's not time for all that.
Definitely.
There's not time for all that for sure. But I do feel like part of our doula work together is the preparation ahead of time and helping you to make those decisions that we may face in our labor. For example, whether or not to be induced became a factor where it was a bit with Mason, but this time there were just a lot of mitigating factors, including COVID.
Yes. So I was definitely stuck in between a rock and a hard place this time around because my due date was scheduled June 8th, and my stepdad, he had total knee surgery scheduled on June 10th,
Yes.
2 days after my due date.
Right. And they had trouble scheduling it because of COVID, correct?
Exactly. It was pushed out and pushed out, just as everything else has been.
Right.
And my mom is amazing when it comes to helping us with Mason. And Mason does so well when he's with her. We don't have to worry about his well being or anything. And so we wanted to make sure that whenever it was time for us to go to the hospital, that Mason was with my mom. And it was just tricky with the total knee surgery scheduled. She would have to accompany my stepdad to surgery. And so we needed to make sure that if we did go into labor, she would be able to be with Mason and not with my stepdad.
Right.
So thank God I had Michelle, the doula, the extraordinaire, my therapist, my everything, helping me figure out the best plan. And with your knowledge and your expertise guiding us, we were able to come up with a plan that my OBGYN was totally on board with. And that was to do a membrane sweep that Friday in the office before my scheduled due date on Monday. My OBGYN thought that was a great idea. And just in case he decided to schedule an induction on Monday, so I can perhaps have Connor before the scheduled knee surgery that Wednesday. It was all such a mess. But the moral of the story is it always totally works out. Everything always works out. And we discussed Michelle over Zoom calls. My husband was on the Zoom calls. And even though it was virtual, we still had your support fully. And you were just able to guide us and give us that confidence that I felt like we needed.
Yeah, because the idea of a membrane sweep was really concerning to you. And so we taught pros and cons and how this might actually help initiate labor for you because it's your second baby and your cervix had already made some nice change. And that's very different than your first baby and being 38 weeks and no cervical change.
Right. And you instilled that confidence in me. You instilled that this is my second baby. I had a vaginal birth with my first. I had great cervical changes, and that I was a high, like a candidate for successful vaginal birth. And I guess that's what I needed to hear. And I needed that support going into the membrane sweep, that office visit on Friday. So my husband said, let's drop off Mason in the morning, have him comfortable with my mom. Let's pack the hospital bags in the car just in case. And thankfully we did, because after that membrane sweep, we went to the chiropractor. I wanted to make sure that I was fully aligned, that my spine and my pelvis was in optimal position for birth. And before the appointment, we did a couple of laps around the community, and I just started contracting. I started contracting like every 5 minutes for about a minute. And my husband and I were like, let's just continue to monitor the situation because I was quite comfortable still.
Yeah, and sometimes a membrane sweep will just cause cramping and some contractions, and then it kind of will, they'll just kind of peter out or fade away. And so doing chiropractic and walking and things like that to try to help it along can go hand in hand at times. Sometimes midwives will recommend castor oil, something to help cause that peristaltic action and get things moving. But again, you were such a good candidate because a lot of times a membrane sweep, if it's going to work, it will get you into labor within 24 to 48 hours. And in case the listeners don't know, what happens with a membrane sweep is it's a vaginal exam, but the care provider inserts their finger through the cervix. So sometimes you can irritate the cervix and cause contractions. But with a membrane sweep, the idea is that they want to insert their finger through the cervix and then sweep, and they try to pull the amniotic sac away from the uterine wall, because when a mom's ready to go into labor, that happens naturally and it causes a release of hormones. And if their body's ready, receptive, baby's ready, again, sometimes it can get you into labor within 24 to 48 hours. So I just wanted to explain that real quick in case somebody's wondering.
No, thank you for doing that. And that's exactly what you explained to me, which helped me which helped me move forward with that decision. Because with Mason, my firstborn, I was so gung-ho with your baby knows his true birthday. And I still truly believe that. I really do. But in this case, I truly was just stuck in this position where I felt that I needed to deliver before my stepdad's knee surgery in order to have someone that I trust watch Mason.
Right. Because Mason's only 2. So,
He just turned 2 like 2 weeks ago.
yeah.
And I love him, but he's my little high maintenance child. And so I just needed for me to like be able to have delivered Connor with peace of mind. I needed to know that he was okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to have a little help postpartum if you needed it too, because that was also our concern.
Right, to have my mom drop off meals or come over like she normally does and just help with dishes
Mm-hmm.
or just be there to support us. And so we figured if we did that membrane sweep that Friday and the surgery was scheduled Wednesday, that would give us some time.
Mm-hmm.
And then my OB had that backup plan of a Monday induction. But I was lucky. I had results with the membrane sweep. And after the chiropractic appointment, Ryan and I continued to monitor my contractions, and they continued to be about every 5 minutes for about 1 minute long. And we were texting Michelle. I kept asking you if I should go in or not. And, you were just able to support us. And we did decide to go to the hospital. And of course, it was a full moon. Of course, the hospital was
Yes.
busy.
Yes.
It was like the night the hurricane was hitting Florida. It was just like the weirdest time. And we check into triage, and the waiting room is packed. Everybody is wearing their masks and looking paranoid as if like the person next to them had COVID.
Yeah, I bet.
The vibes were just like terrible.
I bet.
So we told the nurse that we were going to wait in the lobby. And because of the strict no visitor policy, the lobby was absolutely dead.
Hmm.
There was nobody in there except a few people like sneaking in a meal. We were able to be there without the toxic vibes of the waiting room
Right.
and just kind of focus on us and I was able to squat whenever I did feel a contraction without feeling like everyone was staring at me.
Right.
Because that was something that you helped me realize is if I squat during a contraction, it can help bring baby down even more. And so after about 3 hours waiting in the lobby, I finally got a bay in triage.
Yeah, because we were trying to decide maybe you should go home if they're not picking up or if they're slowing down or how long is it going to be. It was this real tricky kind of thing because we know how fast Mason came. So that was part of trying to figure all this out too.
Right. And so it was tricky because I was comfortable and I didn't know how much I had dilated. And at the same time, I just didn't want to go home and then things progress and I have a car baby.
Right, which is a possibility with you. It's a very valid concern with you.
Right, because for the listeners, I was a first time mom with Mason, and when they broke my water at 41 weeks, I had Mason 1 hour and 16 minutes later.
Yeah.
So I knew that I have the potential to have a quick and fast baby.
Yeah, because you were already 6 in triage when you came in, and you had just kind of been contracting for a few hours, but your cervix made lots of change ahead of time. So we know they broke your water and you had a baby. They didn't believe us
Right.
that you needed to
And
push.
that was my
This-
first time. That was my first time having
Mhm.
a kid. So I knew the second time, as you hear, the second time that baby comes out quicker. And so I just wanted to err on the side of caution. So
Mhm.
thankfully, as soon as we were like ready to leave, like hitting that 3 hour mark, they called me back and I got a room in triage and they decided to admit me because of those factors. And it worked out in my benefit because they were able to start that first dose of ampicillin since I was GBS positive. And the protocol typically is 2 doses prior to delivery. And so I was able to get that first dose. They checked my cervix and I was 5 centimeters upon admission.
Yeah, and you were 3 in the office, right?
I was 3 that morning when I had my membrane sweep at 11 o'clock a.m.
Yeah, so that's some good change.
And this was about 6 o'clock p.m. that I was in triage. So I got my first dose. I was in triage, so I didn't want to like unpack everything that I had. I had my essential oils that you were able to mail to me that were so important for me to have at birth. And I had my pillow that I wanted to feel comfortable with and labor with. But that was just all in the suitcase because we just didn't want to get too comfortable, hoping that we would get a room,
Right.
the delivery suite. And sure enough, we did. It was maybe like another 3 hours later. And I was so grateful to have that room. It was so peaceful. I asked them for the wireless monitoring, which they were able to give me.
Good.
I told them my birth plan. I had it all printed out, laminated even, because I'm such a psycho.
You're very organized. You're a good planner.
I am, and that's what killed me is I'm such a planner, and with birth it's just so unpredictable and so out of your control and you just have to surrender.
Yeah. So I have a quick question.
Sure.
Because with Mason, you had written out all of your affirmations and we taped them on the wall, and then you had the one that you were looking at in the bed. Did you print out affirmations again this time?
I didn't.
Since I didn't get to see them.
I know you weren't there.
I know.
You were there spiritually, but not physically.
I was. I know.
No, we did not print out affirmations this time around. I was able to listen to some soundtracks that you have recorded and some hypnobirthing soundtracks. And I didn't have the affirmations physically printed out, but I did keep telling myself that I'm strong, I'm capable, I'm powerful, I'm meant for this, I've done it before. It's all I know is this epidural free birth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what I wanted to achieve again. And I knew that if I did it before, I can do it again. And so we were able to get settled in that room, and I was just so grateful because they let me shower. I asked if I could shower. They let me shower. I was able to have a bowel movement before. I was so happy about that and so
Yeah.
relieved.
Yeah.
And then I was just able to get settled. They gave me my second dose of ampicillin, and they were fully aware of how quick Mason came out of me, that they had everything prepared. And then soon enough, I became 8 centimeters dilated, and then that's when things started to get intense.
Mm-hmm.
I was comfortable up until 8, and then at 8, it just intensified. So we called the nurse, and then the nurse called the midwife and my OB. And the midwife walked in, and I told her I felt like I needed to push. And my water had not broken yet. And she told me if I need to push, then I can push. And when I did, at 1:13 a.m., I pushed and my water broke on its own.
Mm.
And she was able to gown up and catch my baby safely. I was on my side. I was laying on my side. I didn't even realize that that's a position that I was going to do.
Yeah, you were on your side with Mason initially too.
I was,
So
yeah.
that's kind of your.
I think I just find comfort into like
Mm-hmm.
with my pillow and like holding on to the bed rail. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, 5 minutes later, Connor came out
Wow.
after that water broke. But it was so great. It was so peaceful. My husband was there supporting me. He was there to tell me to breathe, to tell me that I was capable. He was able to feel confident as my birthing partner because he was there for Mason and he was there every step of the way with Mason. So, all that preparation we did with you,
Mm-hmm.
with Mason, and he was there throughout all of our Zoom calls
Yeah. Yeah.
prior to Connor.
And he was so present. He really was in the calls.
Thanks.
Yeah.
He was great. And so he also gained confidence. You know, we needed to have our doula like stamp of approval for confidence. And we were able to just have Connor, and it was just so peaceful.
I'm so glad.
It was so great. We had the essential oils going, everybody was prepared. I think the difference between Mason and Connor was with Mason, I was this first time mom, and they thought that once they broke my water, they'll check on me in a couple hours and see how I progressed. But with Connor, they knew how quickly I can progress, and so they were just ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Ryan knew too how quickly you went, so he could make sure they're aware. And he did such a great job with Mason.
Thanks.
So I'm sure he did an amazing job this time.
So, what was different this time around is once we were in our delivery room, the nurse told me that I needed to get the nasal swab for COVID testing.
Yes, yeah. So they didn't do that downstairs.
They did not do that in triage. They did it once I was admitted in the room.
And they started your IV in triage, though, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Because they did your antibiotics.
Correct. So the nurse that performed the nasal swab was excellent. She explained everything that she was going to do before and while she was doing it. So that really helped me. And I'm not going to lie, it was uncomfortable, but I just kind of tried to breathe through it and just try to stay calm. But I had to like tilt my head back, and she twisted that Q-tip like 6 times all the way back there.
Did she do both nostrils or one?
She just did the one, thankfully.
Okay. Yeah. And she tried to time it between the contractions, I'm assuming.
She did. She wanted to make sure it was a good time for me, and I did appreciate that. But what was interesting is they swabbed me, but not Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
But that's fine, whatever they needed to do. And they told me that if it was negative, I could stay in this room, but if it was positive, they might need to move me.
Oh, okay. And did they have you wearing a mask up to this point and Ryan wearing a mask? Because I know that's a big concern for a lot of mamas is the mask.
Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot in some mama groups that I'm in on social media. And thankfully, no, I did not have to wear a mask whenever I was in my quote unquote room. Whenever I was transferred between triage and the delivery suite, when I was transferred in that wheelchair to get there, I had to wear the mask. Whenever I was in the lobby or in common areas, I had to wear the mask. But thank God I did not have to wear the mask while pushing because, I mean, you see that on social media
Mm-hmm.
of some of the moms that have to. But I think it had to do with the fact that I was negative. I tested negative for COVID. So,
And you got in your room about 10:30 at night, right?
correct.
How quickly did they get the results back?
Within the hour.
Within the hour.
It was so quick.
Oh, good. Good. And in triage, did you have to wear your mask? You got to take it off in triage,
I got to take it off in triage.
even when they came in? Because I've heard some moms saying, or some of the guidelines you're hearing is you have to put it on when they come in, but when they leave, you can take it off.
I did hear that too, but my experience was when we were in the room, when a provider came in, we didn't put on the mask. This was back in June and it's now August, so things may have changed.
Right.
And they didn't ask us to put on a mask.
Okay.
And when we were just being transferred, we made sure, like when we were in the hallways, to be wearing a mask when we were.
Okay.
It was interesting though, like not even on my postpartum unit did Ryan and I wear a mask.
Okay. Because I've heard if mom's negative, then she doesn't have to wear one, but her partner does or her husband does.
Right. It was interesting. Like I said, things could have changed, but Ryan and I didn't wear a mask. And maybe in hindsight, I would have put one on now with the information that I know. Like I don't know. You're just not in the same
Right.
headspace
Right. Right.
when you're just focused on baby at that point.
Yeah. Because I have had some other couples say that she took it off, but her husband had to wear it. So, yeah, I think it can vary by birth, by facility. That's the thing. I don't think there's a lot of consistency in it. And you're right, it could be changing now because it's August versus June.
Right.
And Florida's a hot spot. So,
Right. But even like with meal delivery with the room service,
mm-hmm.
when they would come in, they would be wearing a mask, but we wouldn't throw on a mask while they were putting the tray of food on the bedside table.
Okay.
Nor did none of the staff asked us, so it wasn't like we were trying to be rebellious and not wear it.
Right.
Like it, and there was no signs or there was no communication that we needed to do it. So we just were comfortable and not doing it. But at the same time, there was communication about if postpartum, should we want to take our baby for a walk around the unit in the little bassinet on wheels, that we have to wear a mask during that time.
Hmm. It's interesting that you could walk the halls because I think in labor, they're trying to keep moms in the rooms from what I've heard. So that's interesting.
Yeah, this was on the postpartum unit. They said that if we wanted to walk with our baby after, we could, but we would need to wear a mask. But you know what? This brings up a good point. With my first pregnancy and delivery, they had a discharge planning class where all of the moms that were getting discharged that day gathered in a room.
Oh, yeah.
And we had to take a class to make sure that we were taking care of ourselves and babies correctly once we were going to be home.
Yeah.
And they were not offering that class anymore because of COVID. Rather, they were having a nurse come in your room and doing one on one teaching. I don't know if it's because I'm a second time mom that it was kind of brief, that discharge teaching,
Okay.
because it's not my first rodeo. But I do remember that class being extremely helpful
Mm-hmm.
when I was a first time mom.
Right.
And how it kind of stinks that they're not offering that right now. Like, I totally get that we can't all be in a room together.
Yeah. I wonder if they're going to film it and video it. That's a good point.
Yeah, everything's just been so different.
So what would you say? Because it sounds like the birth was so peaceful, and I'm so grateful. And I have always said, as a doula and as a childbirth educator, a hypnobirthing practitioner, that I've done my job right if you don't need me there. If you can do it without me, which ultimately everybody can. Not that I don't think we doulas can make a difference, and it's lovely to have that one-on-one support, but ultimately I want you to feel confident and like you could do it. And I'm so thrilled that you had such a peaceful birth. That makes my heart so happy, especially since I couldn't be there and there's so much stress going on right now. So, my question is, what did you find to be stressful about all of this? What turned out better than you thought?
What was stressful is the timing that we felt pressure giving birth before that scheduled surgery for my stepdad.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just trying, because at that point I was 39 weeks and 5 days, where with Mason, I carried until 41 weeks. I had that scheduled induction at 41 weeks. So I had no idea if Connor would want to stay in for as long as his brother did.
Right.
That was stressful. I think the pandemic was stressful, but at the same time, the hospital experience with the limited visitors and all the restrictions, it actually made it less stressful. Typically, the hospital that we deliver at, the cars are lined up at the front, and valet can take a while.
Mm-hmm.
And with COVID happening, you can pull up your car and the valet person was available right then and there.
Mm.
And I mean, it just wasn't busy. Like, it wasn't hustling and bustling. It was very peaceful. Like, the overall hospital was peaceful. And because there wasn't visitors allowed, it was just less chaotic.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes so much sense to me because sometimes I'll caution mamas, especially first time moms. I know you want to show off your baby, you want to share your baby, people want to see your baby, but please be careful not to have too many visitors because then you don't sleep. You've got that adrenaline rush, the hormone rush of having a new baby. But day 2 or day 3, you can feel like you've been run over by a Mack truck because you don't rest, because you're entertaining and showing off the baby, and your breastfeeding schedule can get thrown off and all of that. So that makes sense to me. It could be disappointing, I'm sure, missing out on that rite of passage, but I'm thinking it has to be a little more peaceful for the mamas postpartum.
It really was. I mean, I love being loved, and I am so full of gratitude for the people that were able to show their love in different ways. But I was also grateful for the space to just be with my baby and my husband. It was nice. It was nice to not worry about, okay, so and so is 30 minutes out. Like, I have to make sure I have to feed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make sure the room is picked up. Like, all the
Right,
silly things that
right,
you worry about, like, I didn't have to worry about this time around.
right. All those things that, like I mentioned, make you feel like you've been run over by a Mack truck because you're doing too much, you're not sleeping, that kind of thing.
Totally. Once we were discharged, and with this pandemic going on, the same rule applied at home with the no visitors
Mm-hmm.
other than my mom. It was nice to still feel that love and support from our friends. We had a bunch of meal drop offs
Oh, nice.
that we are just so grateful for, because that just makes a world of difference.
It does.
Just for those fresh parents with that fresh baby, the last thing you want to do is worry about a meal, prepping a meal, and the dishes. And so
Yes.
we were lucky to be loved by so many of our friends that they dropped off meals at our front door.
Oh, that's great.
They tried to make it like contactless. So they said if, we were busy, they could just leave it on the porch. And it was so nice.
Which is how it should be anyway, in a way. When I would work in the birth center and discharge families, I would tease with them, but I would say, If somebody's coming over just to visit, they can stay 5 minutes if they bring food. If they want to come over and do your baby laundry and make you dinner and help you, then they can stay longer. Because again, sometimes it's just exhausting to have visitors that stay for a while, and it can interrupt your breastfeeding and your rest and things like that. So I could see how it could be helpful to have that quiet unless you're feeling really overwhelmed because you don't have any help, which that could be facing some families for sure right now that don't have their mom or family close. So it's kind of a catch-22 in a way.
It was nice. I mean, we were able to feel supported and, people called and texted and messaged, and it was nice. But I do remember, having the visitors with Mason and then like literally having to kick friends out and being like, okay, you've been here for an hour and we're going to try to get some rest while baby's sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was nice to just have the drop offs. It was nice.
So, what have you found with COVID that's different postpartum now that Connor's a little older? What's good? What's more difficult?
So with Connor, he's 8 weeks now. And I think what's just been difficult is when we had Mason, I was a maniac and I was out and about and I was running errands and I was attending a mother baby breastfeeding class and just doing all sorts of things during the day where with the pandemic going on, I was forced to kind of stay home and rest,
Mm-hmm.
which I totally needed. I really did because, having a toddler and a newborn at home is tough. So that was a plus, was the extra mandatory rest almost.
Mm-hmm. And it's so important. And it doesn't matter how much we suggest you rest with your first baby. You're just not always so
Yeah.
good with it.
Right. I think the downfall would be if I wanted to have that breastfeeding support
Mm-hmm.
in those group setting classes that I attended with my first, and they're not offering right now. They were so helpful then as a first time mom.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I keep saying this, thankfully, this was my second rodeo.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do feel for the moms going through this and it's their first time and just all the unknowns.
Yeah, and I think the isolation can be not that it's not hard on all mamas, but I kind of think it might be a little more difficult for first-time moms because they don't know what to expect.
I think so.
Yeah, being able to have that contact with friends and family.
I think too, they're just this small for so long
Mhm.
that, you blink and like Connor now is 8 weeks. And so there's been so many people that weren't able to see him as a newborn, like
Mhm.
that fresh itty bitty baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
And still so many people that have yet to meet him in person that they're grieving that and I'm grieving that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen my grandsons. I've seen them once since the pandemic started.
It's just tough.
It's tough. Yeah, we're trying to be so careful with COVID, and I feel like I'm missing out on my grandbabies. And it's hard. It's a really difficult time.
It does suck because it's a huge transition already. A transition into motherhood can take a toll on you. And then a transition into motherhood without having that physical support. I think like it's just different to be able to get a nice big warm hug from a friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that physical touch and that contact. That's what we are all like lacking right now, I feel.
Yeah. I agree. Or as a grandma, knowing that I'm missing these moments of seeing my grandson. And we were really bonded, and he's a little over a year old. And my gosh, is that going to be affected by this lack of continuity right now?
Yeah, there's just so much that's just, it's so weird. The other day, someone said to me, with Mason being 2 years old, that like 1/4 of his life has been spent in isolation.
Mm, wow. Wow.
When she said that, it hit me hard. I was like, oh my gosh, you are so right. And it just, yeah, 1/4 of his life. And so it's just a reminder that we all need to give ourselves grace during this weird, unique period.
I think you're absolutely right in that. And to understand that we're grieving. We're grieving globally.
Oh, all of us.
Yes. Yes.
I think, a lot of people are grieving their missed vacations or their postponed weddings or unfortunately not being able to attend a funeral.
Mm-hmm.
It's just been so crazy.
Yeah.
And I read this amazing quote that said, we are all in the same storm. We may not be in the same boat, but we are all in the same storm.
Mm, I really like that. It's so true.
I do want to touch base on the fact that this time around, I decided there's something in my gut telling me to do placenta encapsulation.
Yes. Yes.
Quarantine has started in March, and we were already in this weird, unique state that I just felt that anxiety was already so high with everybody that even though I don't personally have like anxiety attacks or any of that, I should still encapsulate the placenta because you told me with my first that if I have it and I need it, then at least I have it.
Mm-hmm.
But once placenta is medical waste, it's gone.
Right.
And so we decided to go ahead and encapsulate the placenta, and it has done wonders for my mood and my energy and my milk supply, all of the above.
I'm so happy to hear that.
It has. And I was so grateful to have you. So, with this whole crazy pandemic, you weren't allowed in, but after delivery, Ryan was just in contact with you via text and he told you that he can meet you downstairs. You guys set up a time and he brought my placenta down to you in a cooler and you just pulled up to the hospital and was able to just pick it up from him.
Yeah, it was great. They were so cooperative about that. They've been absolutely wonderful, I have to say.
And it just goes to show how everybody, businesses, families, everything, everyone's just been so creative and innovative to just make it work. And it always works out.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to say that hospital for my other mamas that have given birth there as well, that if they needed to ask me a question or have a phone call, or we could have Zoomed, you just didn't have time. And my other mamas haven't either. Their births have gone pretty quickly. But if we needed to have a conversation, they were so great. And we would get on speakerphone and the nurse and all of us, we would brainstorm together. Let's try this position. Let's try that. And they have been so great and so supportive because I think they understand how much families want to have doulas there, how we can be helpful. So it's a difficult space. And I'm just so glad that the nurse, they've been supportive of it and that you feel like the support was still there. It wasn't the same as your first birth, but I feel like we were still able to come up with a plan and help you navigate those decisions. And I still got to encapsulate your placenta, and you had a peaceful birth. And that just makes my heart happy. And your postpartum's been going well, and you're finding the pills help.
Oh my gosh, totally.
It's a lot of mamas. They call them their magic happy pills.
Oh yeah. I mean, initially, I'm not gonna lie, it's intimidating and it can kind of seem gross,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But oh my gosh, if it helps, it helps. And I'm lucky that it helps me. But everybody that I've said that I've been doing it, they've said, "Oh my goodness, I did it too, and it worked wonders for me."
Oh, good. Good.
I haven't had one person tell me, "Oh, I did it and it didn't help me." Like everyone has given me positive feedback of their experience with placenta encapsulation.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, so it's been great and I've been grateful for it.
Good. Good. I know sometimes it's mentally this big jump. Like, I'm going to do what? But
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the only thing about it is maybe like an aftertaste
mm,
after you take it, because I take mine first thing in the morning, like on an empty stomach. But I find that if I like drink it with coffee, it helps versus just water.
yeah, or take it with food.
Yeah. And so that's like the only downfall. Everything else is amazing.
Good. And is it a terrible aftertaste?
No, it's like a moment and it's done.
Okay. And it's done.
Yeah.
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 Good. Yeah. It might be powder residue on the gelatin capsule.
Right.
So, what would your advice be to families having walked through this experience of giving birth during COVID-19 pandemic?
My advice would be to wake up every morning and purposefully choose joy.
Mm,
Yes, you can throw yourself a pity party, and yes, it's normal to have bad days. Like it ebbs and it flows, to have good moments and bad, but to try to have the attitude of gratitude helped tremendously for us.
mm-hmm.
And to just accept help and love. And when friends reach out to you, let me know what day is good, to tell them tonight is great.
Mm-hmm.
When they ask what meal they can have delivered via Uber Eats, tell them exactly and thank them for thinking of you guys. And really just be a team with your partner if you have that, and just know that everything is phases. Everything is phases. The pregnancy pains and being uncomfortable, that is a phase. For me, that's already gone. The newborn difficulties, yes, I'm still in it, but it is just a phase. And then soon I'm going to blink and Connor's going to be in college and I'm going to be crying and wishing that I could still be in this phase.
Yes. Yes. Because my girls are 34, 27, 21, and 12. And you are exactly right.
It just all happened so quick.
Mm-hmm. It really does. And in the moment, in the middle of the night, when you're just so tired and you're nursing or you're up feeding and you just think, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? You do. And then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, it went by faster than I thought. So, is there anything else you want to share with the families before I let you get back to your sweet babies?
Just hang in there and know that you're totally not alone. And know that motherhood is like the weird thing where you want it to speed up and slow down.
Yeah.
You miss your independence, but then once you have a break, you miss your babies.
Yeah.
Like it's just this weird, but brilliant thing.
Yeah.
It's the most selfless, challenging thing, but it's the best thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And if someone wanted to hear more about your thoughts and advice and parenthood, they can follow you on Instagram, right?
Yes, so my Instagram handle is at prego to parent. And on there, I share our everyday adventures. I'm very vulnerable and transparent on there. So I'll share our breastfeeding, experience, I'll share what I'm feeding my toddler that day, or toddler play activities, or product recommendations, or what podcasts I'm listening to, all sorts of things. So I'd love to connect with you on there.
Yeah, you have some really great stuff on there, and it's nice because it's mom to mom or parent to parent.
It's been amazing. It's been so great. I originally created it just to have it as like a record keeping for me, but it's been so great to share our journey and know that it's helping other people's journey.
Yeah, and I feel like right now too with COVID, it is so important to find those connections, and social media is and groups are filling that gap a little bit, I think.
It's really great. I mean, to message a mom at like 4 a.m. because you guys are both up breastfeeding at the same time, to
Mhm.
just know that you're doing the same thing at the same time and you could talk about it.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Flashing back to when I was nursing my kids, and that wasn't a thing. You just felt alone at night, which in a way is nice and magical, but you could also feel really alone. And gosh, with my first, we didn't even have cable TV, so there
Oh
was
my gosh.
or YouTube or anything. So
Yeah.
that connection is nice. And then at the same time, it's nice that you're really vulnerable in it. So, because sometimes, mamas will compare themselves to another mama. And I like that and appreciate that it's just more open and vulnerable. And this is what we're doing. And that is helpful.
Yeah, it is. It's hard because Instagram, it's everyone's highlight reel. And that's what I like to remind people. Like, these are our highlights of our day. And then sometimes I like to be funny and record when they're both screaming, crying, or when I'm like covered in spit up drinking a glass of wine, because that's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that realness to it, which is so important.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for doing this. We're up late at night. I appreciate you taking the time because I know so many families are just so uncertain and feeling overwhelmed about giving birth during this COVID pandemic. And you shared so beautifully how it can still be a peaceful and lovely experience, even when you're facing the challenges of the pandemic. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I hope that this conversation serves somebody, at least one person, and that would just make me so happy.
Yeah, me too, because that's really what it's about. So I know that's why you share your journey as well. And thank you all for listening, and know that there are resources out there for you, even in the midst of this uncertainty, and you can find support and community. And if you are enjoying the show, please share it with a friend. And you can rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, because that helps to get this valuable information to more families. So thank you again for listening.
For more great conversations like these, or to find out more information and access Michelle's library of amazing guests, go to birtheaseservices.com/podcast. For more information on the Birth method, Michelle's classes, meditations, and other services, go to birtheaseservices.com.